You either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And we have our final deep dive of Nic Cage November already.
Unfortunately, the end has come.
Yeah, and today, as promised, we have an episode that is going to take your face off.
Wow, way to work that in.
Hey, it saved the movie. Could be a good intro for the podcast.
You know what? You're not wrong.
We're doing Face Off in case you haven't guessed it. The last of the first 3 big movies that starred Nicolas Cage's action era.
Oh, and boy, is this an action film. There's action left, there's action right, and there's very little sensible things happening in between.
Yes. So, Face Off is written by Mike Werb and Michael Colleary, directed by famous John Woo, who I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people. I've only seen this, Wind Talkers, which was another movie with Nicolas Cage,
yeah,
and the awful Mission Impossible 2 by John Woo. So I know of him. I haven't seen any of his other stuff.
If it makes you feel better, I would argue this is his peak. This is the best John Woo has done.
I've heard The Killing and what was
that
it?
Is good.
He's got another one that I know is really, really big. I can't remember its name. It's like Meltdown or something. I don't watch a lot of action movies, so
that's okay. I argue that this is his greatest. It's also the first time that he was given the big credit for a directing port. He had done other work, but this was the first time that he was front and center director, full vision.
He had built his name, and then now it's a John Woo movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also, you might have heard us talk about Werb and Colleary before, because this is the second movie in a row that we've brought up Lara Croft, because they wrote Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
A delightful movie as well, and honestly does have some similar vibes.
Yes. But Face Off stars John Travolta as Stick Up the Ass FBI agent John Archer, Nicolas Cage as terrorist for hire Castor Troy,
yep,
and Joan Ellen as the wife at her ends Eve Archer.
Yep, and honestly, you don't need to know any of those characters' real names.
Because it gets flip-flopped around for 2 of them.
Yeah, oh my gosh. This is a movie about a guy pretending to be another guy, played by 2 actors pretending to be each other.
Yes.
It's very confusing at times.
It's fantastic acting is what it is.
It really is fantastic acting, and it almost wasn't either of these 2 actors, which blows my mind. Because I can't imagine anyone else doing these roles.
Yep, and I'll get into that in just a second, because our sources for today's episode include commentary by Woo, Werb, and Colleary.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the special DVD with all of those commentaries on it, just listen to the joint commentary.
Yeah.
It has it split up, where it has all 3, and then it just has the writers. And I swear, the other commentary is just the same as the first commentary. They just took John Woo's dialogue or any back and forth that they had together out of it.
Yeah, I agree. It did feel like they just edited him out for 2 commentaries worth, because it's the same, but it is a fun and interesting commentary.
And also, I do like that you brought up early on of how much of a nightmare this movie was to even get made in the first place.
Oh boy.
Because as much as it's loved in a classic now, it went through so much crap. It went through 6 years to write the script.
Yeah.
2 different studios, 3 directors, the third one being John Woo.
Of course.
Countless potential casting changes. At one point, Johnny Depp and 5 other people they threw out there.
So many other big names were even considered. A few read the script and went, no, absolutely not.
Hell, even Woo said that at the beginning.
I don't blame him after having watched this movie. On paper, this sounds nightmare.
And the only reason Woo was desired is because one of the writers saw the trailer for the movie The Killer and immediately wanted to see that movie. And when he did, he realized that he had written a movie for John Woo without knowing who John Woo was.
Fantastic.
And that was still 8 years between the release of The Killer and the release of Face Off.
Yes. Also, Face Off has a slight sad, beginning. They got the inspiration to, have the face surgery part from a friend who had a snowboarding accident and had to have face reconstruction surgery. And they're like, oh man, that sucks. But dope. What if?
Yeah, I've had ideas for potential movies based off people I know.
Yeah, so, like, I'm so sorry to whoever that was, because I don't think they ever mentioned his name, which, fair.
Yeah.
But also, like, ooh, you know you're that friend, too. It's not like, oh, a different friend.
Yeah, and I get it, too. I mean, at the time when the movie was eventually greenlit, it was the most expensive greenlit film Paramount had ended up or attempted to make, but it also ended up being co-financed by Buena Vista, which is aka Disney.
Yeah, that's just Disney. But it worked out because this movie made a shit ton of money. It was the 11th highest grossing film of that year.
Yeah. And
which, for Face Off, is shocking.
And it's honestly, with people we know that have done that know we do the podcast.
Yeah.
Every time I bring up, oh yeah, we're Nic Cage November starting. Yes. Are you doing Con Air? Have you done Face Off? Have you done The Rock? It's like,
yeah, this is a lot of people's peak Cage, I think.
Yeah, and I'm a little sad this is the 6th year we've been doing this, and we're finally getting to it.
I agree, but at the same time, I kind of don't hate us for this, because while this movie is a lot of fun, this movie is a shit show of just everywhere all the time. And it is peak Cage. It is John Travolta doing his damnedest to try and meet Cage energy. I think he does a good job. It's
the opposite of it. Cage is trying to meet John Travolta's energy because Cage was filming Con Air while they started filming this, and they sent dailies of Travolta to Cage, and Cage is like, wrote back to Travolta, he's like, I see what a caliber I must live up to.
Which is true. There's plenty of Cage face, which is fantastic. So if you are a fan of the crazy eyes, we've got that built in. We have girlfriends/wives who suddenly make appearances that you thought they didn't matter anymore. We've got dead children? ?
Yeah.
Like, this movie has it all. And yet, it has so little.
Yeah, and I know we've covered a handful of movies with dead children.
This is true. This one is interesting choice, because this movie is a rated R film. I would argue that it's not that bad. But it does not shy away from just showing all of the action all the time.
I mean, it's 1997, so...
It is also 1997.
But before we get into Face Off, Chris, what are we drinking today?
We have poisoned water.
Not poisoned, drugged water.
Sorry, they're so different.
It's filled with powder.
It's just electrolytes, but delicious.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Yep, tastes like electrolytes.
Yeah, gotta keep up our energy for this fast-paced movie.
But actually, this movie has so much happening every single frame.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes it so classic, is it just goes on and on and on with, like...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just from the beginning, the opening credits and the dad on the carousel with the assassination attempt.
It's so over the top.
It is, but okay, so here's some things I've noticed.
Okay.
Both main actors' names appear over John Travolta while the credits are rolling, which is a nice little touch.
That is a nice touch.
But the sniper, like, just throwing off his cape on the hill in a park.
And it's, like, it's not like you're close up to him when the camera does this. We're pretty far away. Like, enough that someone else in the park would go, huh.
Yeah, what's that dude doing up on the hill?
Wow, like, what a weird guy.
It's not like he's even taking like a pot shot or trying to do it real quick. It's set up like he's slow, meticulous, like he's been there waiting with a suitcase and a sniper rifle, because he had time to get like a drink and is sipping, like takes 3 sips from the drink through the entire credits.
It's the most awkward drink sipping scene ever too, because they tried to film it like smoking a cigarette, which I totally see what Cage is going for, but it's just a lot of lip movement. It's a little donkey lippy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not like he's hiding in any way. It's not like he's got the gun underneath like a coat pretending that he's just out for a picnic. No, he's full on sniping from the middle of a busy park.
Yeah, well, and I also wonder where this park is, because I don't think I've ever been to a park that just has some random carousel.
I have, but Kansas is a special place.
Huh. Interesting.
Kansas is a special place. But with that said, there isn't really a location for this. Alcatraz is as close as we kind of come.
It's in California.
Yeah, so like, California especially. Where are we?
What is it, San Francisco?
What empty-ass park letting snipers in San Francisco shoot people with a carousel? Where is everyone? Is this a Monday at like 10 in the morning?
Yeah,
Like, where is everyone at work? Is this church hours? Is everyone else in the movie at church?
Maybe. Because, I mean, it does feel like it's a day off, because before we know anything, I mean, the kid gets killed in place of, we're probably aware that he's trying to take out the dad, not the kid.
Yes, I also love that they very, very intentionally gave this kid the standard kid haircut of the time period.
Of the 90s, every single boy character had, I think it's what's called the skater cut.
Yes, and so this child from the back has a dusty blonde skater cut, and so he looks like every other child from the 90s movies. So fill in whatever character you think that is, because that was fun to play while I watched this scene.
Yeah, it's not a bad intro, though. I mean, we get some drama. We get that, hey, there's some danger going to happen. Kind of turns into a nightmare as it fades to black and white. And
John Travolta's acting is very, like, convincing. You really do feel very sad that the kid's dead. And, like, Nic Cage's donkey lip scene is interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
You at least get the idea that he's, like, a badass. I will say, I do think that this Cage, granted this is a younger Cage, not youngest, we've covered that one, but younger.
Well, we haven't yet. But...
That's true. We've gone as far back as we can get a hold of at the moment.
I have almost as far back as we can go, but they're to the credit, it's bit parts of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High where he's got 2 seconds of screen time in the back flipping burgers.
That doesn't count. I do think youngest Cage looks best with the weird mustache. I know it's supposed to be like a quote unquote fake disguise looking mustache. Like, wow, look at how like clearly this is going to change his whole face when he shaves it off, because they do in like the next scene. They bring up his like CSI file or whatever it is, and it's like, oh, look, there he is without the mustache. He looks totally different. And I'm like, no, he looks almost the same, but I do think the mustache is a benefit.
I'm going to disappoint you a little bit, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Cage is our age in Face Off.
That is disappointing. I could have done so much with my life, according to this movie.
Yeah, as an actor, he's like 32.
Yeah, again, this is for Cage. Doing good.
Yeah. But yeah, we do cut to 6 years later after this opening, and some operation going on and planting of the bomb from Castor Troy's character, which that dossier that they bring up, I love 90s era and like old school movie dossiers.
I love it.
I have so many questions.
Me too.
How do they know his vision's 2020, but they don't know his date and place of birth, but also know he's 32 years old?
I have no idea. There's many questions. I feel like this is where movies set back then just cannot compete with the amount of normal armchair sleuthing that we can do today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I bet you if this movie was a real lifetime thing, a normal armchair person could give you every detail about this man's life. Someone would have broken down a video to find out exactly how tall he is in pixel format.
Yep.
Like, we would know his weight based off of, like, how much penguins float. All sorts of nonsense.
There's this Asian dude whose Instagram reels or whatever keep popping up on my feed every now and then. And he's just measuring random people because they all take their cameras from that lower angle.
To make them look taller.
Yes.
Yeah, I've run across his stuff as well. Mind-blowing. But yeah, the fact that in 1997, we genuinely thought, like, yeah, we know everything.
To be fair, it is 1997. This is pre-Y2K. This is before everyone had a computer in their home. So whatever's on screen is impressive. The Jurassic Park 1993 Linux system looks super advanced, even though it was of its time and a pretty bad system, apparently.
And you know this is supposed to be science fiction action, not just action, because there is green on black text on the screen.
Or an alien website.
So, you know, ooh, future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, they did take it back a little bit from what they were talking about. The movie was originally set like 150 years in the future, so...
I was gonna say, the original concept that one of them very briefly threw out of, like, the future, but in Alcatraz, sounds so cool, but also, like, no. it would be boring compared to this.
No, I mean, look at Total Recall.
Total Recall is cool, But I don't, like, the premise of Face Off is already so stupid that it doesn't need to be set any more in the future.
The contemporary setting makes it feel more advanced than if it was a futuristic movie,
Yes.
because otherwise, like, oh, of course in the future they have flying cars, you can swap your face for any other.
Yes, especially because one of the writers who was talking about how, like, oh, we were inspired because our friend had that terrible accident and had to have surgery. The way he described it, he clearly misunderstood what the surgery was his friend had, because he had it sounding like his whole friend's face was fully lifted off and then put back on. And I went, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt that's exactly what happened, my good man.
They brought up something later on afterwards that that kind of what they did, that they believe was used in the first real face transplant in France, like 20 years later, or something, 10 years later, something like that.
And I love that they went so big under such a misunderstanding of how medical science works, and that's what makes this movie work.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, they do bring up that John Woo adds a lot of feeling and heart, like emotional.
There's like a drama there.
Yeah, I'm thinking emotional ticks at like certain points, and even within the action itself.
Definitely.
Because in this build-up, we do see that Archer is clearly frustrated with everything that's going on. He can't catch Castor Troy.
Yep.
And on top of that, we were given kind of an extreme example of the Hitchcock bomb theory.
Yeah, that's true.
Where we know the bomb's planted, but we're given a long-ass time for this bomb to be planted.
Like so many minutes, I didn't even try to calculate how long this bomb's gonna take to go off.
It was like 2 weeks or something.
It's so many.
But, I mean, we don't really see that in those types of spy or action movies. It's always they set the bomb and
for
they're
5
gone.
minutes, and they have to, like, sprint out of the building.
Yeah, and they're gone in 60 seconds. It makes a great idea for, like, having this long-time bomb. They go in, they set it, no one suspects them, and it goes off weeks later. So now they're having to go back through all this footage to try and figure out who the hell did it.
Yes, the other thing that works so well is, while we know there is literally a ticking time bomb somewhere in the city, and we have to find it, there is not a constant countdown happening, like there would be in other action movies where they're constantly flashing back to how long we have, or, oh, we kind of know it's going to take about 5 hours, and then the movie lasts 6 hours, and you're like, wow, movie math didn't math very well. This bomb takes so long that literally even the bad guys are like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also, here's the thing why I think I would like to see this movie is set very far in the future, too. Is because the original bomb could talk and had self-defense mechanisms.
Which
and it's
would be hilarious.
Yeah, no, exactly.
If it makes you feel better, it's somewhat confirmed that we are getting a sequel, and not just like same feels. Full-on sequel to this movie sometime in the future.
It'll be a reboot of some kind. That'll be probably dog shit because they take it in some direction that fans don't like the movie.
From the one interview that I can find about this stupid sequel that you may or may not want and get, it was announced in 2019, but that doesn't mean anything. But 2021, they did announce that they'd found a director for it and that it would be a direct story sequel. They didn't say how far in the future it would be set, though. So maybe.
How the fuck do they do that? Because every...
and it's not including the original cast. Literally both Cage and Travolta are like, no thank you. I don't want to be back.
Well, how can they... Because everyone who's like tied to this is dead at the end of the movie besides Travolta.
Yes, and also like neither actor wants to come back.
I don't blame them.
Me neither. Like they've already... Like, this is the masterpiece. Don't touch it. Don't come back. But... just to get your hopes up, that futuristic idea of having the bomb have its own self-defense arms could happen.
We'll see.
Probably won't.
But I do also have questions of where he places bomb, because it's not like a small bomb.
No, it's like a duffel bag of bomb.
Yeah, well, it's multiple like stacked storage containers, like 4 containers high, and on top of that, it's in like some air duct unit or some exhaust.
In like an underground tunnel.
No, it's above because there's a skyline around him.
Yeah, he can see. Yeah, where is this? Where is this bomb? And how is no one go there for several thousand hours? So that way no one finds it and is like, hey, bomb squad found it.
It is the LA Convention Center. That's where this movie's set. It's not Los Angeles, or it's not San...
That doesn't even help my question, though, because, like, what room in the LA Convention Center is big enough to hold this bomb and no one is going to go in for that long.
Or like, hey, we got some, like, this room's not getting heated properly. What's going on here?
Oh, hey, can you go get the ladder out of storage room B real quick? Like,
well,
really?
That's the thing is, like, because it's not... That I think it's probably up in, like, some duct or some, like, just above.
He's, like, floating above the ACT ceiling somehow?
No, it's, like, above the atrium where, like, they have the big diffusers and whatnot.
Maybe, but still. This feels very strange. And also, like, from a bomb placement standpoint, is that, like, do you want your bomb up in the air where it's going to do less damage?
Well, it also doesn't make sense either, because if it's sitting on something, it's blocking something. There's no hole in the bottom either.
Yeah, no, this is messing up somebody's...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is... What? Yeah. But also, like...
there's no ductwork above it, so it just...
And also, like, this is classic mwahaha bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you put the bomb here and not, like, show it being strapped to a skyscraper's, like, you know, foundational structure? Or, like, a bridge's arms that is going to go off during rush hour during the middle of a Super Bowl game? Like, why not... Like, it's so... The bomb is such a non-issue. Like, literally, they don't care about the bomb. It's just the only thing keeping the plot running.
The only thing that's actually what the writers and directors said. And it was running long enough to keep the plot interesting for what it needed to do.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can think of is, I guess in lines with, like, the Hitler assassination attempt where they put there was a briefcase directed for him, but they put it up, but someone noticed it and put it on the other side of the table's support.
Well, and then that guy also had one hand and had a hard time arming the bomb with his one hand because his other hand blew up already. And then he also chickened out and left.
Yeah.
So, like, come on, we've learned nothing? I'm not saying that that's a good ground,
No.
But, like, this is such a classic bad guy situation. It's so over-the-top fictional mwahaha evil because we're about to face off, switch off.
Yeah.
Which is even more crazy. And it's, like, people, I legitimately forget there's a bomb half the time. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, oh, he has such a vendetta against him for killing his child and then also his whole family. And...
Yeah, well, and we really don't get much on Castor Troy initially other than, oh, he's an international terrorist. But
I do like that, though. You know, the faceless villain. Well,
and this scene is also to really set up, like, he's more of a disgusting person because one, we do get that amazing singing scene and the head-banging priest.
It is very good.
They did mention that when they wrote this, he seemed like a little bit of a kooky priest for the time because this is obviously before all the stuff with the Catholic Church comes out. But it's also to set up that he's discussing in the fact that he grabs the teen's ass.
Yes.
And then he has this weird thing where every time he grabs someone's ass, he's like, has a like little orgasm.
It is very strange. There's like some hints that they were trying to mirror this too with like, oh, later on we've got to have, you know, because we have two actors playing the same role essentially. We have to like mirror that later on. And they even were like, yeah, Cage improvised a good bit, which, you know, Cage do what Cage do, and it works, and we loved it. It did make it hard to write some of these things back in, though.
Yeah, well, he was allowed to, because here's the other thing. We're still going on. There's credits rolling on top of this, by the way.
Yeah, it's still the beginning.
We have 7 minutes into the movie before we're introduced to...
Anyone else?
Well, Troy's crew and Pollock.
Yeah.
Or Pollux. And we still have credits rolling. But also, the reason there's so many dragons is because Cage believed he was born in the year of the dragon, and Wu just let him do what he wanted. Same with Travolta, too, which we'll see later on in another scene.
Cage, I did find it interesting that in the interview, they did say, like, they worded it that way. Cage believed he was born in the year of the dragon. You don't need to believe, my good man. You can know. You can calculate these things. It comes on Chinese takeout menus half the time. So, like, maybe just look it up. Hey,
I mean, it adds to the level of lore that is Cage.
It really does, because this is also like some quality Cage that we're enjoying.
But it's also a scene to slightly soften Castor Troy a little bit too.
He has some rules.
Well, not really rules, but it shows that he's taking care of his brother, who's clearly he's got something going on. We find out he's a paranoid schizophrenic.
He's the silly one, right?
Yeah, but it's someone he cares for because he ties his shoe. Yeah. Showing that that's like the only thing, like, he does something for someone else for once, because otherwise he doesn't do anything else for everyone. He's just very sexual and just obnoxious at points.
Very
too.
in the moment, yeah.
Yeah, because the stewardess, he's like, "Ooh, I love peaches.
He's
Do you want
so
to
creepy.
suck my tongue?"
And she's like, "No, you can leave."
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. And on his
so much.
Oh, it's disgusting.
But, like, it's played so well because you do end up being like, okay, I do also hate this man. Not just because you shot a child at the beginning and then planted a bomb. Because, like, those are terrible, but also, like, a little corny.
Yeah.
This, okay, now you're also a terrible person.
Exactly. But this is also where we get our first face-off of the movie.
Haha.
With a game of chicken.
Yes, true.
Which, this is also seen to establish and build Archer, where he's willing to risk it all, as long as it's just himself really in danger.
Yes.
But he plays it much safer when his people are involved, especially when Castor pulls out that, hey, the air stewardess, she's an FBI agent.
Oh, wouldn't want her to fall out the plane and get run over or anything. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fun, over-the-top action scene, too, because they can't take off because they've spent all their time playing chicken on the tarmac.
Yeah.
And then it just leads to so many explosions and slow motion.
It's everywhere. It's all over the place.
And here's the thing. I don't hate the slow motion in this because it's so well mixed in with the action. It's not just like, ooh, and it's used for like little bullshitty things that don't really matter too much.
I agree. It's there for fun.
Exactly. It's not just like every time something dramatic happens, slow motion.
And this is where, for me, I think Wu stands out as far as like and granted, I've not seen everything he's directed, but I have seen a good number. And for me, this is where I think he shines, because all of the action scenes in this movie are interesting. They're shot in a different or stylized way in some form. We get some cool angles. We get some scenes of like things I wouldn't necessarily have thought of to include, but enjoy that, like, oh, yeah, instead of just showing a character being thrown off screen and like that's kind of it, we kind of follow them through their sad tumble down the tarmac.
Yep.
Which, sad, but adds a level of interest and realism to this action.
Yeah. And there's a few other things that happen too, where one guy gets shot in the ear.
Yeah.
It shows, and that comes back up later. There's nice little details that pay off.
Yep.
But also there's like little mistakes here and there that are fun too, of like one of the FBI agents, you can see his wire. Yeah. And it's like, it's unfortunately like blatantly obvious, but I think it works in adding that just right level of unintentional cheese to an action movie.
Yes, especially since this is one of the action movies which they were fairly pleased with themselves on being able to do mostly practical stunts, which is very impressive considering a lot of these stunts are very dangerous. I'm surprised that no one was hurt.
Yeah, this is also, I believe, pre-Matrix. I think Matrix was 99, so like this is before the heavy green screen started getting involved in every action movie.
Definitely, but we had started to see like a lean towards green screen for a lot of the very dangerous acts. And they managed to get pretty much everything with a practical effect, which I do think helps. Yes, it's corny. And yeah, you can see some wires occasionally, and there's a few bad background acting. But I think it adds a level of charm. Whereas if this was all green screened and we like cleaned up all the wires and stuff, I don't think it would be as like kind of fun to rewatch.
Oh yeah. Also, I mean, warehouse hangar fights are always fun.
This is true.
But I do have a lot of questions about this one because, I mean, it's an airplane hangar.
It is.
But it's holding so much random shit. Like, it's not big enough to, like, fit the plane in it.
Yeah, the plane has to park out front.
Yeah, there's so much shit that's going on inside, or so much parts in there. Like, it's got random parts, random barrels.
Yeah.
Crates of some kind, as well as a facility to test the engines in.
Yes. So they did shoot this part on a location. So this is like a real aircraft place. But my guess is they went, hey, everybody with a bay kind of near this one, can we borrow some of your crap to like fill out the set? Which then in turn accidentally meant that like you can't park an airplane in here even to do maintenance. This is just like, but it's also not clear, like it's clearly not like the junk warehouse either. Like this isn't where they're just keeping the spare parts. This is like, wow, Ted over here really can't keep his stuff together. Look at his disgusting aircraft hangar.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it does make for a good action scene and a great standoff, which, like I said, and it's not parts, it's beats. That's the term I was looking for. There's emotional beats to this where it doesn't feel like it's just a shootout like we would see in something like Con Air or Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. It's because John Woo wanted to make the bad guy interesting and not just some evil for the hero to fight.
True. I mean, he is the most evil, which does help the fighting part, but...
I wouldn't say most evil. He's evil enough.
He's very evil. Yeah. We've reached peak bad guy. But he has more interesting features than just mustache-twirling people attached to the railroad tracks bad guy.
Yes, I will give you that, but not most evil. He's a pretty bad guy.
I don't know how many other giant terrorists this version of the world has in the movie, but I would assume that he's peak number one enemy of the public.
I mean, yeah, in this world.
I would assume.
Across history, no, but
obviously. But, I would like to assume that there's not, a similar version of this guy, but in New York City. Mm-hmm. That's too many.
Yeah. Well, and at the core of both of the characters, they are similar enough where it feels like if they had the same upbringing, they would have been on the same trajectory.
Oh, the whole nature versus nurture. Would he have been evil if his daddy loved him?
Yeah, or his dad didn't force him into a life of crime as well.
Which brings up a good point later on in the movie, because the movie itself did think about this question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. And, like I said, there is those emotional beats where he wants to help his brother, but his brother's being arrested, so he has to abandon him.
Yeah.
They both know, or Castor, Troy, and Archer both know each other well enough that they know how many bullets are in each other's guns.
Yes. The other, fun hint at the whole, twin aspect of this movie is the names themselves. Castor and Pollux are the name of the Greek twins that eventually get turned into the Gemini constellation by Zeus.
Huh.
Which I don't think the, actual legend of Castor and Pollux are, played into. I think it's more of, they were very focused on the whole twin aspect, being face-off.
Yeah, naming one of them Romulus, one of them Remus kind of thing.
Would have also been appropriate, yeah. But, I liked that it was honestly fairly subtle. It took me a hot second, and this is from someone who had multiple books in childhood about constellations.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I find interesting is where John Woo comes from with the Hong Kong action scene, and he didn't realize how many rules there are for that American heroes are supposed to follow, and I really haven't thought about it too much either. We're still kind of, I don't know, I maybe have to do a little bit of a deeper dive on this myself, but I wonder how far off from the days of comic book codes a lot of our mainstream action hero movies are anymore. I
do know that there's been over the decades we have shifted more and more away from Superman's normal code of conduct.
Yeah.
Because he was, let's be honest, the peak superhero as far as morality goes.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of him.
Batman's these fists are rated E for everyone superhero,
including all the children I keep acquiring. Yes.
Oh, I'm for a second there I'm like, wait, I have no clue what you're talking about, but then I remembered Robin and Nightwing.
And Robin and other Robin and Girl Robin. And...
Yeah. I've seen the clip from Teen Titans Go, actually, of the different Robins teaming up.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so many sad orphans. But, yeah, no, Superman, especially when Superman was, the majority of, when you thought superhero, you thought the original Superman. Think little curly Q Superman. That was, for movies, the peak of, superhero morality. Yeah. And then, when you needed, a quote-unquote dirty cop, he would take one or two of those things and throw them out the window. He'll gamble, but he'd never shoot a woman, and he'd always hold this door open for children, sort of nonsense, right? And then it just kind of went down and down and down until we hit, I honestly think, mid-2000s. was like the lowest that you could go and still be the good guy in the film. Because we spent a lot of time trying to have these action heroes who weren't good guys. They were like, oh, he's recruited bad guy, but he's got a heart of gold. And you're like, what's the heart of gold doing? He's like, he doesn't hate women. You're like, okay, well.
Good enough.
That counts.
Yeah.
And then I do think there has been more of a peak in it, but it's been in like that reverse sort of like, oh, he's the dark villain. He's had so much turmoil that he has a hard time being good. I think we're on that. We're at the end of that right now.
Okay.
And I think with Spider-Man, we're starting to see a resurgence in the whole, like, he holds the door open for ladies and says thank you and tips his taxi driver. Like, I think we're starting to get back to the most moral good guy. This is right at the cusp of like, wow, he is actually a garbage man. But he's the good guy in the story, so... like, he has some good traits, and they talk about it. Like, the director talked about, like, no, he has some morals, you know, he wants to always... he would never shoot an agent, he would never shoot a cop, you know... He wants to be there for his family, but his job just takes it all out of him.
Yeah, and at the end, he adopts a sad orphan boy.
Which was a very strange... like, I know they address it, but I still have questions.
Well, we'll get to it, yeah.
But, like, so, like, this is, like, heading towards the lowest peak of good guy, I think, in the timeline of good guy and action hero sort of movies.
He's lawfully good, but on the home front, he's not the great of a person.
Yeah, we haven't hit chaotic neutral yet. We haven't hit lawful evil yet. But we're on the slide down to that point. We're getting close to triple X.
Okay, I can see
which might be the lowest point.
I'm sure there's worse.
I know there is. But just as an example.
Okay. But it's a good showdown. I think it's a good way to like really make you wonder where this movie's going, because he captures the bad guy in the first like 10-15 minutes probably closer to 20 minutes of the movie, because we have 7 minutes of credits.
I would say the credits take a really long time.
Yeah. And like you did say, we finally do get home and there's turmoil. Got the dramatic, angsty teenager.
Yeah, who we only mildly care about, let's be real.
Yeah, good news, kind of happy return that he's promised to fix it all. And
yeah, you know, he's been a shithole, but it's going to be better from here on forward.
Yeah, the wife has the line, I just want you.
Oh, so sweet. And
then,
now you're going to forget about both those characters for a hot second.
Yeah, but I do have questions too, because there's something about this family that I just find really weird.
They look fake?
No.
Okay, that was my complaint.
They touch each other's face all the time, and like
yes,
in this,
and in like the that's how I know it's my husband, because he grabs my face a certain way.
It's like painting the head Urukai's face in Lord of the Rings, where they just put the hand on the face and pull the fingers down.
This is how I greet a cat. This isn't how I greet humans.
You greet cats very differently than me.
You don't hamburger your cat's heads? They love it.
No, I push them over and assault their bellies with my love.
That's true. I usually, if they want, I will grab their heads like little McDonald's hamburgers, and then you shake it up and down in greeting.
Yeah, mine don't like
yeah,
that.
Yours don't like it. Mine does.
Well, Remy's special.
He is a special boy.
But we like you said, it's a very short moment, and Archer's back to work and applauded. Even the CIA recognizes him. They sent a bottle of very expensive champagne,
which I think is like, you could replace that with they sent him edible arrangements, and it would have been the same. It would have been the same amount of like interest.
Yeah, it's just like kind of good for you.
It's slightly above that Starbucks gift card that your boss sends you via email. It's not even like a real one.
Oh yeah.
But like, it's also not like, oh, they got you the thing you wanted, which was retirement.
Oh, kind of retirement.
His wife would like retirement.
He would like retirement.
He seems tired.
I don't blame him. He's been after this dude for at least
6 years.
Way more than that. Enough to the point where this guy wants to assassinate him.
This is true. Yeah.
So it's probably been about 20-ish years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But also, what I like about this moment is it adds another little emotional beat to it, where it's not a joyous moment for him, because he brings up all the people who have fallen around him. This part is another part that he brought into it that Wu liked. And it's the fact that it's not just that he remembers the name of the fallen. It feels like it's a big hit for him, where this whole thing was, while it might have started as a vendetta for his son, there's other people who are caught up in his revenge, and it doesn't have that same hero coming home moment that it should have. And and I like it too because it's based off a Vietnam War tradition to honor the fallen. I do like that. It adds a nice little touch, and it does turn this guy from like a kind of full of himself character into a much more like almost film noir, troubled cop sort of vibes. Yeah. And I think it works better that way. Well, and it also feels like after that, he closes off the file with one last look at his son. It feels like a nice way of his attempt to bookend this case of, he said thank you for everyone who's lost their lives, or he's told everyone else to remember. And then he's saying goodbye to his son for one last time. True. Except it's not one last time. We will revisit that. Nope, because the idea for a bomb was found. Oh my god! Yeah. Which I also appreciate this era of advanced technology. Which is like so archaic that it doesn't make any sense. Well, not even just archaic, but this guy spent all this time to put in all this graphic design into the new threat. Yes. Of like, a simple keypad would have worked. But you know what? It's got to be digital, and every time you press it, it's got to have a flame around it. It does kind of remind me of our friends' children's iPads, where like it's too much, but it's just an iPad at the same time. Where you're like, wow, look at all of the stuff, but all you can do is push a few numbers and then it reads to you. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's over-engineered out the wazoo. Yeah. But this is also the beginning of the real point of the movie where they can't send a plant to talk to Pollux. Yeah, he'd know. But there's an option. Well, this is where we also hear he's paranoid schizophrenic too. But. Well, and it doesn't really matter in the end. Because, let's be real, we all know that Pollux is fodder for this movie. Yeah. From the moment he's introduced. Most people in this movie are fodder. Honestly, I'm surprised both main characters live as long as they do. I mean, you gotta. Because, surprise, motherfuckers. Yeah. Castle Troy is alive. Oh my god. We all saw that coming. Yeah, but it's also a way to bring in the sci-fi elements to give kind of like this. It's going to be a tough decision. It's going to screw everything else up, but he doesn't have any other option. I do love that they looked at everybody they possibly could have and went, you know who would be great for this? The guy we just sent an edible arrangement to about this problem. Well, the reason they do it is because he's the only one who knows him intimately enough. He knows every aspect of his life. I bet you his secretary also knows him just as much. We have a team that we just complained half of them died. Yeah. So... Well, maybe the secretary is the one who died. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But there's also those little moments that we get the little payoff of the guy who got a ear shot off in the shootout. Yeah. He's getting his ear repaired, and it's just to give him some type of, hey, we have some faith in our... Yeah. You have some faith in us because, hey, we're taking care of one of yours. Woohoo. Isn't that great? Yeah, but this is also where part of the original was quite different and futuristic. That was supposed to be like so much more that they were supposed to be able to do. Which would have made all of my gripes about this, like, fake surgery make so much more sense. Because they're like, it's not just they take his face and put it on his face. It's his body, it's his voice. Like, let's be real. Nic Cage's neck and John Travolta's necks are not the same neck. You won't know some. It's like blood types. Yeah. See, okay. And that's where I do think that if you were going to be nitpicky, which some of the critics who watched this movie originally were, this is where the overly future part wasn't rewritten throughout the script. Because all of the elements from the original, like, it's the full swapping of the surgery. Like, they are fully each other for the most part, minus a few things. Yeah. That made so much more sense than, like, now it's definitely the other guy. And you're like, wait a minute. And these two people don't look anything alike. No. And we'll get into that in just a little, like, few lines. Yeah. I also like this setup, too, because they give him this way to get in, but he wants to do it the old-fashioned way by interrogating his crew, which we get. Sure. It's a way to introduce a couple other characters. Troy's lover, the lover's brother. People that we don't care about. Let's be very frank. Yeah, the lover you're supposed to a little bit.
I think you are,
but not at this point.
Not yet.
Yeah. And this is also where we get the 18th as the date, so we have kind of a potential timeline for this movie.
You know, ish.
Yeah. But it makes it an even more tough decision because he's going to have to say goodbye to his family, everything around him, and they have to keep it 100% secret. It's a black bag operation. No one knows about this.
Wow, so secret.
Yeah. Well, and on top of it, like when he goes home, he's trying to be romantic and also drops some bad news that, hey, honey, you know that thing I promised you yesterday about...
Like, literally yesterday.
Yeah, stay at home, going to therapy.
You know... doing normal job stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to peace out on another secret mission for who knows how long this time.
Literally years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that talk is gonna go well.
Oh yeah. Well, and then on top of that, like it's I don't get the purpose of the face touching because she touches his face too, and it just
I get from a like writing standpoint the whole like, oh, they're very intimate and like they know each other so well that like there would be some suspicions if it wasn't you. I would always know you. But this is like the strangest greeting. It's like monkeys touching. It's so handsy. It's
just such awkward moment. I know it's supposed to make it feel like an intimate relationship.
And, like, I get it. And I know there are people who out here are listening. They're like, I touch my partner's face. And I'm like, no. Not like these people do.
No, you don't touch him like you're marking him with the white hand of Sauron.
No. Like, I don't know, lovingly caress their cheek or, like, the back of their head or, like, touch their shoulders.
Grab their ass.
Yeah, sure. Honestly, at this point, if the story had shifted to, I know that's not my husband because I know my husband's ass, I would have believed that.
Yeah. Oh, this is a little firmer than usual.
I mean, this would have made more sense than, oh, no, I know it's you because I regularly put my entire palm across your mouth.
She also potentially sees his dick later.
Which, that does beg the question, like, how much is she paying attention? Are they that different?
Or are they that similar? Did they take the time to compare to that level?
See, okay, the movie would like you to think they compared to that level, and yet the facts we are given, because again, they de-sci-fied this a little bit because they wanted it to be less in the future.
Yeah.
Would, by the rules spoken out loud, it would not have changed. It would have been someone else's body, essentially.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's clearly not. Like, don't get me wrong, I prefer the version where that's not what happened, because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know, like, you've seen your husband shirtless plenty of times, and I'm sure that one could pick out John Travolta versus Nic Cage very easily.
Yes. But now it is time for the second face-off.
Oh my god.
Pretty cool procedure, to be honest. I mean, it just sucks the face off, and I appreciate that they're horrible people on top of that, where they leave casters just open
don't
face.
Yeah, they just don't even bother. They put some bandages on it. They're like, that's good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how to de-sci-fi this, they went almost the opposite direction with this surgery. Nothing's sterile. This is not in like a good clean room. There's like random people running around.
There's glass between them.
Yeah, and then, like, Castor's face, they're like, what should we do about this giant open flesh wound that will definitely get infected and kill this man? I know. Light bandages.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Then let's leave him there and let him wake up so his face is off.
They're like, you guys remember those classic mummy movies?
Yeah, okay, like, this movie is 1997, and I know that medical care has come a long way since 1997, but surely this wasn't the standard practice for someone whose whole face is missing.
No, and on top of that, like, some of this just sounds really stupid at times.
It really does.
Where they're like, oh, we have this microchip that'll alter your voice. But, you know, a violent sneeze could knock it out of place. And it's like, that seems like a pretty big issue of, like, a violent sneeze, or like, what if he eats wrong? What if he swallows?
I would say, can we not use a little bit stronger glue to hold this microchip in place? Also, even the director was like, yeah, we said microchip. We didn't know what the hell we were talking about.
No, exactly.
Like, none of this technology makes sense in any direction, no matter how you swing it.
No. Well, the other thing is, like, they don't even try and put, like, dentures, like, on either of them.
No, they're just like, ah!
Just keep the teeth the same. No one will notice that your smile's absolutely different.
I was gonna say John Travolta, famously known for. his face.
Nic Cage, not so much known for his smile then.
No, we hadn't hit veneers yet.
No. But also, like, I understand Archer not liking waking up with the face of his enemy.
Oh, no, I do think that acting-wise works really well. I think it's portrayed very clearly that, like, oh, he's going to hate himself every second.
Mm-hmm. But also to the point where he's like, after this is done, burn his face forever. It's like, what kind of humanitarian crimes are you guys trying to commit with this?
Also, like, is that not kind of the standard practice for bio-waste? Like, if they take his face back off.
But are they gonna just leave him with that open wound on his face?
I think they were, yeah. I think that was the idea.
Cruel and unusual punishments.
I would agree. This man has room to sue if he can make it to the courtroom.
Yeah, for all we know, he's just bombed a couple people.
Well, I don't think that comes into play.
No, not at all.
I don't think when you're suing for cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know if you bombing people gets to be brought up in court. I feel like that's superfluous.
Well, it's never brought up to court because we are about to send him off to prison, which...
True.
The prison is this futuristic prison where it's a black site where no one knows what's there, no one knows who's in there. So theoretically, they're just going to send him to this hole to die anyways.
Correct, yeah.
Which I do like this prison enough too. It does feel sterile and futuristic enough.
Yeah.
Without going too far.
I agree. Is it my favorite false black box prison in film? No. But it is a good black box prison. I don't know how well it's going to stick with me after we're done recording this, though. Because it hits all of the boxes that you, as a normal person, could think up as, like, how would I build a prison where I put the worst people? Yeah,
actually, now that I think about it, all three of these action movies involve a prison at one point or another.
That's true.
The Rock, they take over Alcatraz.
Yeah. This was meant to be Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's right, because the original idea was most of this movie was going to be imprisonment, and it was...
Future Alcatraz.
Birdman of Alcatraz.
Yeah.
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 But that's the thing, too, is... But yeah, like, Con Air also has a prison, this has a prison, even though, like, they're not major parts of the movie.
But they're there.
Yeah.
They're there.
3 prison movies. I wonder how many other movies he's done in prison.
Enough that he must have, like, a pretty standard idea of how to, like... do all of these characters at this point, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we think about, like, Drive Angry, technically he's in a prison in hell.
Yeah.
Willy's Wonderland, he's in prison. Not really in prison. Trapped, I guess. Kind of in prison.
Does he ever go to prison in Racine, Arizona for stealing that baby?
He's constantly in and out of prison. That's how he meets the wifey.
That's right. I feel like Nic Cage's character is getting into an awful lot of trouble.
We've covered 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also in this prison, I think there were some things that they do to try and keep it futuristic with, like, the series of TVs showing nature, which feels very Big Brothery.
It does. This was also, like, the height of, like, peace psychology as far as, like, what can you do to, like, lower the aggression rate.
Painted baby blue.
It was baby pink.
Baby whatever.
It was baby pink. And it's not necessarily baby pink. It's called, I think, prison pink.
Hmm.
And it is not a very pretty color. But it was meant to be very soft and caring and to lower aggression.
Effeminate.
Yeah, actually. And then, like, there was some studies into, like, how much free time, what type of diet, what type of music should you play. Like, the whole works. Mm-hmm. So this was, like, kind of at the height of that. So I do appreciate that they intentionally brought some of that, like, general, like, knowledge in. Like I said, this prison was created pretty much from what the audience would have already been able to think up. This isn't like, oh, let's reinvent the wheel. They're like, okay, if everyone could write 5 bullet points of what you think future prison's gonna have, we'll just incorporate those.
Yeah.
And also it works.
Well, it's also a fun scene too, because it's getting to see the other side of Troy's character, or Castor's character, of how awful he is to people outside of him, or outside of his brother, because there's other inmates in there who want to kill him. Yeah, exactly.
Who hate him.
And also we get to see the really fun, crazy Nicolas Cage face.
He does get really good Cage time here in prison, which was fun, especially when you think about that this is Cage pretending to be John Travolta, pretending to be Cage.
Yes. No, exactly. But it's all because it's under Pollock's gaze, so he's trying to, like, really drive up the craziness, and as far as we've seen, the only really crazy bit is him jizzing to grabbing some chick's ass.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because other than that, he's been a pretty... the flight attendant sucked my tongue, but that
was gross.
But not, like, really cagey.
No, not on the Cage scale. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, and I mean, even after he succeeds being a badass in prison, his brother's really, or Pollux is really drilling him to figure out, which, I mean, makes sense, being the whole paranoid schizophrenic, and it's nice to see that Archer doesn't know everything about...
Yeah.
Doesn't know everything about Casser, because he doesn't even know why that guy jumped him. Turns out he's a scumbag. He had a threesome with that dude's sister and wife after the dude was sent to prison.
That would be a reason to be jumped.
Yes. But it's the other thing too is like the start of this movie moves so quickly or this middle portion, not the start of it, this middle portion.
Yeah.
Because immediately his brother gives away the location of the bomb.
Oh, his brother doesn't waste a second of plot.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then just like, if you're watching this for the first time and you're like, so what's going to happen with the last hour left in this movie?
Honestly, this movie's longer than you assume.
Yeah, well, it's a good way for like to misdirect audiences.
True.
Their first time watching it, and
yeah, because as an audience, you want to be invested in the bomb, but the story really doesn't care.
No, exactly. I mean, it's a good redirect because we're at our third face-off.
This is true. I like how you've managed to include the words face-off in our review more than this movie could in its own script.
Yes, I did that on purpose.
Yeah, they had such a hard time trying to get those words in there, and you have just effortlessly woven them into everything.
Well, because they have to do it visually. They can't say, oh, this is the third face-off, because otherwise it feels like, well, here's face-off 1, here's face-off 2, here's face-off 3.
I mean, sure, but also...
But it's also a really good oh shit moment of him seeing himself. Slow motion too, which...
Yeah. Again, it's not annoying in this movie.
No. But it's also a good way of putting Archer into a corner because he's killed everyone who knows that, hey, he's trapped in here.
That's true, yeah.
Good acting on both sides because this is the first time they're up against each other.
Yeah.
And actually the first time, like, we've seen... second face-off between the two of them in person. But really well, like, balancing of... You can see Archer's anger through Troy.
Yeah.
And just the lack of giving a shit from the other side.
That is true.
And also at the same time, like, he's constantly making fun of, like, his goody two-shoes personality.
Which I would argue he's not that goody two-shoesy. Like, there's an awful lot he just doesn't do well.
Yeah, I mean...
And, the movie does explain that later on. It's like, oh, if you're such a bad person, like, look how much better I can be at your life.
Yeah, I mean, when he was interrogating the crew, he was throwing shit at them, knocking chairs over, playing the bad cop, pulled a gun on one of them.
He does pull a gun on a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not a good cop at times.
No,
agent.
He needs a vacation and a lot of therapy.
Yeah, he needs to get the stick out of his ass.
That's true.
Or he was supposed to already get the stick out of his ass with catching Troy.
And then the whole, like, oh, come out of retirement, but he wasn't retired.
No. But also on the other side of seeing Archer trying to figure out the life, because Archer doesn't know the other side, where I like that him driving past the house works, because he might have a rough idea of where Archer lives, but he doesn't know.
Yeah, I like that he has to sleuth his way through this, and yet he stumbles upon the correct answer half the time. It's very convenient.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure he has the wallet on him too.
Probably. I also love that, like, as a high-level police dude chasing the supposedly nation's worst terrorist, you think to yourself, I'm going to have no security at my home at all. But that's, like, such 90s, like, bullshit.
They do mention he does have security.
Yeah, it's the lightest of security known to man.
Yeah, I mean, it's movie security. You gotta have it to keep the plot going.
It's not only movie security, this is, like, peak 90s, and it's I think it adds a level of that, like, old-time charm, like, the same way the technology did when they were, like, doing the actual surgery, or they're, like, pulling up his file, and it's like, ooh, green text, ooh.
Yeah. Well, and it's also this bit to, well, I mean, to be fair, we're also before maps and stuff, so, like, to really get anywhere, you'd have to kind of know your way around the city.
You would have had to pre-print out the map quest.
I don't even think MapQuest was a thing.
Might not have been at this point. Either way, it was paper.
Yeah, it was paper, or you went out and bought a physical map.
This is the era of rolling down your window and asking, hey, do you know how to get to the library?
Have you seen the movie Funny Farm?
Yes, but it's been a while.
The part where he asks the farmer, hey, how do you get to... I forget the name of the town. How'd you know my name was Buck? Or Bud? I just guessed. Well, why don't you guess your way to Rosebud? Yeah, it's one of those things.
Definitely.
But it's also, you see the difference in him right from the get-go, because he's all into the wife, very much more charming than Archer is in real.
He's better at being this fake father than Archer was for a while.
Yeah, creepy, kind of into the daughter a little bit.
I'm glad I was not the only one who, like, got over creeped by this.
Yeah, cool. But he's the cool dad smoking. There's gonna be some changes around here, man.
And not just cool dad smoking. He blows a smoke ring, a baby smoke ring. This is no Gandalf, but a baby smoke ring. Ooh, so cool.
With a cigarette. Most people, I don't think I've ever seen really anyone do that with a cigarette.
I do think that movies intentionally turned down the cigarette like coolness for quite a while. Because, like, I mean, think Cruella de Vil. She's got a little cigarette on the end of that long filter / stick, and she's blowing smoke rings all day. Sure. That woman smokes like 18 packs a day. And half of them aren't even going in her mouth. It's just flying out the back of the car.
Yeah.
So, like, he's so cool. And also, like, edgy, because, like, this is 97. Smoking was now frowned upon. Do not smoke, my friends. This was when people were trying to quit.
Yeah, I remember... When I moved to Germany and then moved back to the States from like 2000 to 2003, and just in that time frame, indoor smoking wasn't a thing anymore.
Yes, this is like the height of people being like, time to kick the bucket on the cigarettes, time to get rid of that habit. So him, like, this was very edgy.
Yeah, and also to try and get him on, I wouldn't say on the same playing field as Archer. Troy reads the wife's diary so that way he can get kind of caught up.
Journal, remember?
Right, because they had the hardest time with executives. There's so many things in this movie and the commentary.
Executives were like nitpicky on. I was like, that's not what I would have focused on, but okay.
No, exactly. It's just all these like little things that, like, yes, we need this bit to know that, hey, Archer doesn't have a good life. The wife's not happy with their relationship.
Yes.
You gotta have those, like, little give moments, and they're like, a woman at that age wouldn't be writing a diary. Bitch, I know plenty of women who do write what their day-to-day at that time.
I was also, like, nowadays it's so common to have a journal. Like, it's so common.
Nowadays, I don't think a lot of people do blogs anymore.
No, blogs I don't think are as big a thing, but I know it's been, like, a pretty big push to, like, buy journals that help you, like, fill out, like, how you're doing, or, like, do bullet journaling. That was big for a while. And then, like, other people really like doing, like, deep processing via your journal. Like, really get through those emotions.
Yeah, I see occasional Instagram or TikToks of someone, like, here's my journal, and then they, like, write 5 things and then just do a bunch of drawings around it.
Yes, yeah. Like, but, like, how funny that in 97 they were like, no one will have a journal in the future, and now it's, like, a huge craze.
Yeah. Well, that's the ebbs and flows of things. I mean,
I suppose so.
Hey, our childhood, the 90s aesthetic is so chic, or I don't know if that's already passed.
No, it's still definitely a thing. Though I think Y2K is slowly becoming more popular.
Great.
Just to make you feel old.
Hey, for some of our upcoming episodes, I've been hopping onto the Wayback Machine. So I've seen some websites from this era.
It hurts. It physically hurts.
Yes. But also to keep the drama going, Pollux is released.
Oh boy.
Troy as Archer is pissing off the higher-ups right away.
We expect no less.
Yeah, better planner than his bro, I guess, which makes sense. I mean, one's a paranoid schizophrenic.
You do kind of get the impression that the brother is along just for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not really in this. He's doing whatever his brother says.
But he's also support for his brother, too.
Of course.
Yeah. But it's also a way to show that Troy and Archer are both adapting to their new roles.
Maybe a little too well.
I agree. But it also showing that they're perfect counterparts to each other.
They could have been the same man.
Exactly. Just different life trajectories.
Yeah, and also, one's John Travolta and the other's Nic Cage.
Yeah, and with inside knowledge, one can defuse a bomb.
Yeah, I bring up that one is John Travolta and one is Nic Cage because the movie posters, all of them, face the two of them together, and there's even several scenes that are meant to be mirroring these two people as if they were, like, long-lost twins.
Yeah.
And I could not think of two actors who do not look the same.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was an option for this movie.
In a movie called Twins.
That was the whole joke. That was the joke of that movie. This movie is trying to be serious about it. Also, Arnold was one of the options, and he said no thank you.
As he should. Last Action Hero is fantastic.
Yeah, it would have been more strange to have Arnold in this. Because, he can't get over the accent.
That would have been amazing. He's this big bad guy. And they don't change his voice.
No, they can't, because Arnold can't do another accent. That's famously, that's the only thing he can sound like.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
In fact, that's Arnold's better accent, because we've seen him at his worst in Hercules.
And even then, that wasn't that bad.
No, I mean, at the time they hated it, but,
we can't even understand you. And we're like, we can without subtitles.
I think maybe it was just because we've listened to him our whole lives.
Possibly.
But yeah, no, I continuously bring up that these two actors are who they are because the movie tries so hard to convince you, the audience, that these two men look so similar.
I just thought of the have you seen that edit between Grease and Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
Tell me more, tell me more. Does he look like a bitch?
Yeah.
John Travolta in all three of those.
That's true. That's true. He's been in so much.
Yeah. But I also appreciate in this diffusion moment that there's a little bit of suspense and there's always these slight deviations from our standard action tropes where he saves the bomb at the last minute.
True.
But this one, because it's a little bit of a glitch where he does it and it doesn't stop at the 10-second mark and he's fuck.
It is a good little release of humor.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, them showing the news footage of him defusing this bomb in prison, 100% is his way of just rubbing it in Archer's face.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And good way of showing the shift in character where he's soaking in the praise of everyone now. He's the hometown hero. So arrogant, he puts the president on hold. And the commentary was mentioned that this movie is set about 10 years in the future.
Okay.
If we're talking 97, it would have been George Bush that he was...
that feels like the correct answer.
Yeah.
That tracks with what type of movie this is.
Yeah, if it was any earlier, it was Clinton, so...
Both would have been a good choice, really. If you're gonna pick a random president to have in your action film, those two are pretty standard.
Yeah. But also, that's the other thing, too, of showing his telltale sign that he, even though he's changed bodies, he's still the same person because... He's inappropriate with the staff now.
Yeah.
He's still jizzing when he's touching someone's ass.
Yeah, there's a lot of faces happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think of that that Lonely Island music video, and I jizzed in my pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 3 times he does it in this movie.
Which is maybe 2 times too many. But it does get across the idea that he is still a terrible person.
Oh, yeah. And it makes the next scene of the date night feel...
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it ruins the because it's already I'm so much better at dating your wife because look at all these candles.
I've made lobster.
And spaghetti.
Yes.
Which I love how as we're listening to the commentary, one of the writers goes, this scene is one of our friends saw this movie and was so inspired by this that this is how he proposed to his girlfriend, now wife, is he had all the candles just like the movie. He made lobster and spaghetti, and I went... Interesting combo, because I had only seen the lobster on the table. I didn't look at the spaghetti.
I didn't either.
I rewound it. It's there. And they were like, yeah, I'm so touched that he really liked this scene. I too am a romantic person, which is why there's a fire hazard amount of candles happening in this house.
Hey, Wu said he was inspired by Kubrick's Barry Lyndon for this.
I understand it. However, one of those is a very, like, artsy-fartsy styling, and the other one is going to burn down his already pissed-off wife's home.
Yeah.
With spaghetti lobster.
But hey, who doesn't like a overly candlelit dinner?
It's... he's not even found all the candles in the house, because it's clearly like they went out and bought the long stem candles, as opposed to like, okay, let's pretend that we're in a house and let's just find all the random woodwick candles that this woman owns and light them all. No, they like went over the top because the director was like, this is what I think of when I think of romance, and I'm like, this is the most boy answer.
No, I think it's better than the most boy answer is what the directors originally wrote.
That's
of them
true.
Just having very graphic sex.
That's true.
Or the writers originally did.
And they got told no, please.
Yeah, well, that was the reason they had to go to a different studio. Fox didn't want it, so they went to Paramount, or whoever it was before Paramount. But
yeah,
I also this is where I bring up, like, how does she not know? Because the thing is,
there's
like,
so much face touching.
Did they not? Well, not only that, but we know they haven't had sex in a while.
Yeah.
But at the same time, did they do it in the dark? Because men's nipples are all different.
Yeah, well, and then, like, they put a huge emphasis. Let's pretend, even though we know it's not true, because we have multiple photos throughout their entire lives of both of these actors shirtless, that neither of their nipples look the same. They're not even close. But let's pretend that that's not an issue. Let's pretend we also had nipple grafts. Well,
on top of that, they didn't do anything to him too, as far as we know, they only changed his face.
That's what they say.
But okay, they say that, but they also mentioned that Archer's character, they took off his love handles so that way he could lose a little bit of weight. Did they put love handles? Did he make them put love handles on him?
I don't know. The other thing that they spend just enough time to remind you it's there, and then they're like, oh, don't look at it when we forgot to include that in the plot, is one of these characters was famously shot and has a scar that he holds onto very dearly.
Oh, yeah.
And they, like, forget that exists during this sex scene. You don't think your wife would be like, hey, honey, where'd the giant hole in your chest go?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
She's just not paying attention, I guess.
I don't know. Or they did it in the dark.
Even in the dark. Like,
yeah.
She's really got, like, that lobster spaghetti mac and cheese combo better have been really damn good.
I mean...
But it's not because she, like, later on she's like, that wasn't my husband. Like, the next scene, you can see the gears turning in her head of, you know what? Now that you mention it, I don't know about that man.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a phone call to change it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, back to Archer a little bit. He's plotting his escape, needing a cigarette picking a fight with the guard is his fast tracking to get his last ditch effort.
I love that his grand escape plan is just start riot.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, slip out during the chaos.
Okay, which is not a bad escape plan. It's just not an escape plan that I don't think hasn't already been tried multiple times in this prison.
Well, no, exactly.
Probably this week.
Well, because like they even said in the commentary, like they couldn't think of they didn't have a way to do it other than the very cheesy blowing of the circuits and all the doors opening.
And honestly, I don't hate it. It's really stupid, but I don't care.
Well, and another way that it relates to Batman as Archer is a character is he's, instead of killing a guard, he stops to disfigure him.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I know the writers were like, woo, threw this in there because they had to have some action. You can't just not get out of a maximum security without harming some people.
That's true.
But he never kills. He even stops the guy that he's buddied up with from killing.
That's true. The other thing that I think was so funny that they spent extra effort in, which the first time I watched this without the commentary, I didn't notice at all. Which is upsetting because they spent a lot of effort making sure no one punched him in the face too many times because they were worried that the audience would be upset that they've punched the face transplant man in the face too many times. So they focused on body shots. And I, watching that movie, already confused as hell, was like, weird that this is the angle we went with, but okay. The reasoning did not occur to me until I watched the commentary.
Well, and even then, it's such a stupid. Well, recovering, face surgery.
No, like the logic makes sense. It's just the way that they had Cage act out the punching instead of being like, oh, you're gonna be like, we're gonna go through these really fast. There's a lot of like close up, like focused in on like, oh, we'll show his whole body getting hit in the gut. He's gonna double over. Yeah. Have like, oh, pain on your face. Like really like get in there with it. Like you're gonna just take a knee to the chest sort of thing. So it's like framed. It's almost artistic in the way they beat this character up. Except for the face, which I totally missed.
I completely missed that as well. But also, it's another one of those movies where if they focus on a failsafe, it's going to fail. Same with Con Air. And that's the other thing too, is like it turns out that this whole prison is just some oil rig, which I did a little Googling because I was curious. There are a lot of abandoned oil rigs.
There's a ton of abandoned oil rigs.
But I also wonder, like, he gets up there and it's like, no, the helicopter's gone. And then it flies up.
And then it's just, like, right there.
Yeah. And on top of that, why is it no? Because he jumps into the ocean to swim back.
Yeah, also, okay, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some oil rigs within swimming distance of the shore. I can't imagine that the high security oil rig is the one close enough to... That feels like it defeats the purpose of being a maximum security prison. Yeah. If the guy can just swim back.
I've seen the videos of people dropping food into the waters around oil rigs.
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah.
No thank you from just water standpoint, but also just from a physical standpoint. The number of people who can swim that far in the ocean is, like, not that many.
This slightly flabby FBI agent who's had a real quick lipo tuck can do
also, like, a face transplant is just gonna quickly swim through the ocean.
Yeah.
No, I doubt. Highly doubt. This man's dead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but that's what's great about it is it's just over the top enough.
It's so over the top.
But now because we know that there's been an escape, or also Castor knows that there's been an escape, he's not dealing with it so well.
No, he feels like a sore loser.
Yeah, he's just... he's really pissed off. Like, it's that thing if he doesn't do well under pressure, like...
Yeah, it has to be
Archer.
his idea.
No, exactly. And also, like, him calling his wife to be like, hey, I'm gonna be working late, just calls her away from some procedure that...
Okay, the reason it's there, and they do mention that they're like, this is dumb, we know, but we had to figure out a way to make sure you knew that she's a doctor and knows medical knowledge.
Oh,
that's the whole reason they have this scene in there. The entire reason, which I think is funny, because I think we cover blood types in, like, 4th, 5th grade science.
Yeah.
And, like, okay, there's so many ways to work in, like, why you would know your spouse's blood type. Like, countless ways. There's some people who are into it for, like, the whole, like, horoscope, like, are you compatible if you've had to go to the emergency room in any recent years, like, oh, you have a kid. They have a kid. So you would, like, probably want to know, just in case you had, like, complications in pregnancy. Like, there's so many other reasons to know your husband's blood type and bring this about. And they went, no, she's a doctor.
Yeah. Well, they do bring it up a little bit when, like, it's he comes home for the first time. She's like, I've got X and Y number of operations.
They spend a whole pan scene in her office at home looking at all of her diplomas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I get it. She's a smarty pants lady. Fun. I love it. But also, like, this is so much. But I also get why. Because later on, the director feels like the story shifts to being her focused. I disagree, but I see why he says that.
Yeah, no, I completely disagree that it ever shifts to the wife, other than, like, for maybe 2 minutes.
I fully disagree with him when he says it's moved to her-centric later on. However, I see why he has all of this other scenes and setups and backgrounds to, like, build her up. Because I remember her so much more than other girlfriend who's about to die.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we're going to get there real quick, because Archer's back on land after swimming who knows how long.
Miles.
And walking for who knows how long to get to that payphone.
Miles.
Yeah.
This man's a beast.
Not even just a payphone. He steals a car from a valet.
Yeah.
And the car just happens to have a phone in it.
Yeah, which I love that even they, like, talk about. They're like, So the odds of this are really low, and we did have to talk about how does one steal a car, and we just agreed to not really think about it.
Yeah, but that's what's great is like you don't have to think about it unless you're us, and then like you do it, and it's like none of this makes sense. Well, and on top of that, like because he's ducking, like a beat cop's gonna recognize him, dude.
The beat cop will not know who you are.
You are a special terrorist that they're putting in a black cell that they're not even announcing to the world that you've been caught.
Also, you're supposed to look very average Joe. That's why you look like the other guy in this movie, supposedly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know, dude. Throw a hat on. You'll be fine.
Yeah. But I also enjoy that the first place he goes to is Castor's hideout.
Like immediately. He doesn't do any reconnaissance to double check that this is good.
Well, here's the thing. One, cool air and penthouse. But if he knows where this place is, and this is a quote-unquote constant place that Troy hangs out at.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just fucking bust him there? You guys have enough evidence on this guy. Do some reconnaissance. Look through the windows, because that's how he gets to you, that's how Troy gets to you.
Oh, no. Don't tell him how to do his job. He's been doing this for 20 years, damn it. It's ruined his marriage.
It's such a stupid bit, but I mean it's an opportunity to see the other side of things that, hey, Troy's living his life, even though, Archer's had this whole shit, his life's going downhill because of this.
Yeah.
Archer's just living the high life.
He's having a great time, honestly.
He's got a girl who's willing to suck his tongue because she gets pissy at him of, you only ever said 3 things to me. Goodbye, suck my tongue, and fuck me.
Well, that does feel like his entire dialogue, so...
Yeah, well, it's also, there's some interesting stuff to this, too, where we have kind of, I do like the bits of Archer having forgotten who he is.
Yeah.
Because we have this moment where he could off these guys around him that we all know are bad people.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw all them in the interrogation, but he needs them. And also, his hand is always on the trigger of the guns that they give him. That's
true. That is very true.
And pointed at the people, even when he's on the drugs. But he also knows the weaknesses, and he's playing into the weaknesses of these people, as we saw through the interrogation. And this is where I get the amazing, I want to take his face off. Which,
my God, so good.
Ad-libbed and saved the title of the movie, because, like you said, they had such a hard time even writing this line into the movie.
Yeah.
And the title itself, that slash between it, was before everyone was doing it for a while.
No, it was just text or numbers for the most part.
And was a huge fight with the studio, who didn't want it. And eventually it took the writer saying, you know what? People are going to think this is a hockey movie if we don't do that.
I would never have assumed this is a hockey movie. But that front, again, they spend so much time in all the movie posters having these two characters' faces just melding into each other that, I guess if you didn't watch a single trailer, I guess it could be hockey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're just looking at the posters, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the poster's really vague.
Because, I mean, you gotta think about this. I don't really remember seeing a lot of movie trailers on TV when I was a kid. So, the only time I'd see them was when I'd go to movies themselves.
True. That was prime movie trailering. That or the VHS that came with the, the box
Or
rental.
why movie posters were so important back then.
That's true.
Same thing, Blockbuster, renting movies.
Yeah, that's how I got most of my commercials. That I wanted to see. There was a handful of, I think, Disney ones that were pretty common on air, but, those were, directly targeted towards, hey, this Christmas, come see, I don't know, Sleeping Beauty, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we because that's the thing, too, is, we didn't have trailers overseas, too, and we went,
that's true.
When we go back to the States, we'd see something, and there's one specific one. I hadn't seen this friend in years. We went to Alaska, and we took him to Santa Claus 3.
Oh, the greatest movie. Yeah.
We didn't know. We all we knew was we liked the first 2 Santa Claus movies. Claus 3.
You know what? You all were living in a world that still some people live in, because they take their kids to movies that most people now would be like, oh my God, why would you do that? Obviously you wouldn't do that. Oh. But we live in a different time. Back then you just did that.
My mom was telling me she and my dad went to see a Monster Calls.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking it would be, because the trailer misled people.
Yeah, it did.
And they remember there were a couple people who went to it. Grandparents took their grandchildren to, and someone was being very vocal. They took their children to it because their mom was going through cancer, thinking it would be a good movie to get their mind off of it. Yeah.
No, well, your mind's not on cancer, that's for sure.
No, the mind's still on cancer because that's the point of the movie.
Well,
the monster is cancer.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, like, it's... Yeah, okay. But in their defense, that one was advertised misleadingly.
Mm-hmm.
I remember many a parent who has taken their child to a quote-unquote Marvel fun movie, and it was not a Marvel fun movie, because they didn't watch a trailer. And which we, like, unfortunately, is kind of how you know if you want to go see something nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Now back to the den a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's this, again, another beat of emotion, because this is when Sasha comes back. We learn a little bit more, and she just flat, like, okay, I get why they're adding, like, this little bit. It's supposed to give Travolta's care, or give Archer a little bit of care for this group, a little bit of trying to keep someone else safe.
Yeah, but, like, you don't care.
Well, because, I mean, there's a little kid now involved, but it's revealed it's Troy's secret son, and it's just like...
Oh my god.
But, like, even Troy doesn't know about it, so why are you telling Troy who you think is Troy?
True. See, that's the thing I don't understand, because, like, she clearly does not think Troy is worthy of being a good person.
No.
Like, she's like, the only things you've said to me are terrible things.
Yeah.
Why would you then be like, by the way, this is your son, I'm expecting child support payments soon? Like, no, you're not.
No. Well, not even that. It's just like...
Why would you tell? Why would you not just keep this child hidden forever?
Yeah, you want to keep him safe, but now you're revealing it to this guy in your one moment of weakness? Also,
like, the worst person you could possibly think of to tell. The only person who'd maybe worse to tell would be that guy's brother.
Yeah.
Those are the two worst people to tell. Tell literally anyone else. Tell a stranger on the street.
Yeah. And immediately from that, go to try and screw him, which I guess the studio wanted Archer to do as, like, a revenge, but I agree, it would have ruined it.
It would have been weird.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, he's got his revenge, but now the other guy doesn't even know that he screwed his wife. No, he does know he screwed his wife.
He does know. He does know. But at the same time, like, it's one of those instances of, like, we've already towed the line on how good this guy is. We're playing with the idea of him, like, struggling, maintaining that goodness under the disguise of evil. This would be one step too far. Like, that's no longer towing the line, right? That's, like, leaning in.
You're making him full on a bad guy at that point.
Exactly.
Embracing the life that he's already losing his identity to.
Which would ruin the whole metaphor that is happening throughout this movie. Which, remember, there's a metaphor happening throughout this whole movie.
Also, now you got to think about the wife's PTSD of having been screwed by the guy who killed your kid.
Yeah, this marriage is gonna have some problems. There's gonna be a lot of therapy at best.
Yeah.
At best.
They're screwed.
Unfortunately, at the end of this movie, they're done for.
Well, you know what they do, what they say, have a kid, it'll fix the marriage.
Well, they say there's children all around, and none of it doesn't seem to help.
Nope.
Everyone's children seem upset also.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of or children in general, we get the man-child caster who's losing it a bit more.
Well, as one does.
Well, he's also slipping. He's calling Pollock's brother over the phone. And now, for some reason, he's protective of the daughter, which I'm glad they went this route instead of...
I agree, because it does add a better humanity to him than, honestly, a lot of the other things they've tried.
Yeah, the only thing about this scene is Danny Masterson trying to force himself on her hasn't aged very well.
It doesn't. No, it sure hasn't. But watching beat the hell out of him bit is nice.
Yeah.
And again, it does do the thing they've been trying several scenes now for. This is, I think, the only scene for me that truly, like, gave him a bit more humanity outside of his brother problem.
Well, and it's also him somewhat adapting in case he does win, so that way he's still it feels like he's trying to play that long game just a little bit, where he's like, okay, well, now if I'm protective of this girl, now I'm actually part of it, she can be like kind of a protege, she can help me get into crime or do whatever. But also it's that typical thing of blaming her how she dresses, which but here's the thing too with that too is when you do dress a certain way, there is that idea of, like, the quote unquote uniform that people will think of you a certain way. I mean, you see with all, like, the counterculture styles with classic punk outfits where nonconformists conform to a specific movement. Oh, because you dress this way and you're involved with this group, you're supposed to act a certain way.
I think the, aim that this was trying to go for more, though, at least from listening to Woo's deep insight into the movie that I don't think was necessarily there, was I do think that this was him trying to reincorporate the idea of, the nature versus nurture, how these families are so close to being themselves and each other.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to him talk through the scene about how nurturing and caring and turning this daughter character into himself in a way, putting the seed against his enemy in a way. I don't think read fully because of everything else that is happening,
mm-hmm.
but I like his idea of it. And I think maybe just a few tweaks we really could have gotten there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like I say, with the whole uniform thing, that's the whole idea is you dress a certain way, you're supposed to act a certain way. And we see it with the other characters as well, of Troy, because he's he dresses the way of an international criminal. So he acts like an international criminal, whereas
I guess
Archer's supposed to be dressed as your straight stuck-up FBI agent.
She just struck me as a standard teen character.
Yeah.
Because this is filmed in 97, we've not quite hit Hilary Duff yet, which is the toned down version of
mm-hmm.
the over... this is just the style of the time. Nobody's jeans made it past their butt crack in 97.
Yeah.
That's why we had extra long shirts, legitimately, was because nobody's jeans made it high enough. I mean, Britney Spears was famous for the extra low-rise jeans at this point.
Okay.
This was, for, I think, the standard fashion of a teenage girl.
I was too interested in Pokemon in 97.
You know what? That's okay.
Yeah. Well, now that you say that, Misty had pretty short shorts for
I was to say, most anime girls in 97 also had just the lowest rised possible thing.
Yeah. But there's also another little bit in this scene, too, where the knife that pays off later on and teaching her how to use it.
Yeah, that part I do like, and I think that part read the way Director Wu was hoping it,
mm-hmm.
The rest of the scene would. And I think there was just a little bit too much happening all at once, especially because we're getting this big, dad-esh spiel that goes with the knife. That the idea is there, but it doesn't portray as well as just handing her the knife.
Yeah, as a way to kind of counter Archer being protective, or somewhat feeling needing to be protective of Troy's kid. Now Troy's character trying to be protective of Archer's kid.
In the only way he knows how. Which is not the correct answer, by the way. Handing your child a knife is not the correct answer.
Same side of the coin. They're the same person, just on different trajectories.
That's true. Because I do think that, in the hit position, I don't think neglect would have been what our good guy would have gone with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think knife was the answer either.
Knife is the answer in this one. But now it is action time with the fourth face-off.
There's so many times that these two characters are going to battle each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's a solid raid. It's fun building up of mayhem with the kid listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It feels a lot of these movies we see now where there's action happening and the song doesn't exactly match it.
That, and also the way they filmed, busting through the window and the shooting,
mm-hmm.
all, I think, reminiscence of other action movies at the time, which is kind of fun, because the way that it's filmed, you get these clips where you're like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where we were going with busting through the window here, but instead of just letting that happen,
mm-hmm.
we then attack the guy who busted through the window and beat his own head in.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. An interesting spin.
Yeah, well, it's also showing that Archer's, again, protective of the kid, even though he knows it's the bad guy's kid. Kid's technically innocent in all this.
And once again, the kid has the most standard haircut, which does mean he looks an awful lot like that boy who died at the beginning.
Yes. I wonder why.
Well, I think all little boy actors at this time just looked the exact same,
mm-hmm.
but I do think this time it was intentional to, really tie in with the audience.
Yeah, because he loses it a little bit before this, thinking it's his own kiddo.
Exactly.
Yeah, but also there's a little bit of comedy and humor in some of this, too, where I don't think it was intended to be comedic, but
no, but it definitely hits it.
But the kid holds a gun up to one of the guys or one of the FBI agents, and the mom like tells him, "Don't ever do that." After she just unloaded a bunch of magazines onto some other guys.
Yeah, she's literally shooting everyone else in the room.
Yeah, but it's also really showing Troy's character where he really doesn't care about anything other than himself and his brother. Mm-hmm. He's willing to throw all these guys to get Archer.
Yeah, oh, exactly.
And killing his own crew, basically.
Yep, they're all dead.
Yeah, but I also appreciate that this entire movie, they kept talking about having a mirror fight, the very classic action mirror fight.
Yes.
And they had to simplify it down to this one scene of like them standing between a mirror.
Which, it does kind of work, but like, again, this movie tries so hard to make these two men seem like they're the same man, and they're just not.
But it's fun, though. It's fun to see them try.
No, and I think the reason it is so fun is because the denial from both the writers and Wu, who are just like, no, we really think it could have been really cool, but we did need to pare it down. The movie was getting long, and they were right. It was too much, so we pared it down. Like, at no point are they like, yeah, it would have been a little weird to be, like, pretending that these two men are the same men, because one's clearly John Travolta, and one's not.
Yeah. And speaking of how we've talked about Cage pretending to be John Travolta's character...
It's been delightful.
When Pollux is killed, and Archer escapes, the way Travolta portrays the loss of the brother... And the true anguish of the only person we know of that he cares. Well, no, not only that we know of. It is the only person he cares of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and like anyone else that could have possibly been important already dead, and he did not care. Yeah. So, like, we know for certain.
And that's the thing. Like I mentioned, it gives substance to these action scenes, and it gives us something more to talk about that we honestly have a difficult time talking about in this genre in general of like, ooh, they shot this place up. Cool. It's a cool fight scene. Move on to the next scene.
And I think part of it is because this movie does spend most of its R rating on showing the death that happens around the raids or the like prison fight and all that sort of stuff. So instead of just having like a cool, like someone gets punched and maybe there's a blood splatter here or there, we got full on like, oh man, that guy's dead.
Yep.
Like, super dead.
Yeah, and there's going to be more deaths because Castor isn't Archer. He's absolutely screwed this raid up. Yep. It's the last bit.
Yep.
Lazaro, the head of his department, is cutting it. He's like, okay, you've been running cowboy for too long.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong.
And I feel Lazaro's death is a little more tragic than many of the other characters in this. Mm-hmm. Because... he just straight up tells him, you know what? Fuck you, I'm Castor Troy. Death. Yeah. And it's like, he doesn't even give him time to, like, register this. It's like...
No, like, he's just saying that for himself.
Yeah. This old man died thinking his one of his best agents killed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's just a prank, bro.
Yeah. Oh, my God, yeah.
But it's a way to build up to the end and actually bring everyone together because... True. Archer's able to sneak back home. Good time to slow down for a little bit of emotion after a lot of action.
I do love that the movie's idea of slow down is, hi wife, I'm not who you think I am. Don't forget. And she's like, wait. Oh, wait, hold on.
Remember my blood type.
Yeah, like, what? This is all so crazy. And also, I love how they did give him one of the more rare blood types. Which was a nice little, like, oh, if you are paying attention, like, little tidbit. But at the same time, it doesn't mean anything.
No, it's just a way to give someone some clue that, hey, the guy who looks like Castor Troy is not Castor Troy, it's actually Archer.
Yes, exactly.
But it also makes the reveal just after this that Troy read the diary that much creepier for the wife.
Yes, 100%.
As well as him showing up to her work later is just, he has got goons in tow, so it's...
well, yeah.
And now it's time for the longest of face-offs. The 5th face-off at the church.
That's true. This one is arguably the most cinematic face-off for the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have the whole build up with this like tiny Catholic church. It's got the whole funeral procession and speeches and stuff going on. We've got extra Catholic stuff happening just to really hammer it home.
You've got doves in the church, which I guess is some reference to another John Woo movie.
Yeah, look, this whole part really is some of the coolest action scene, because this balances out the like over cinematic stylings that Woo sometimes has in his other films with the like really nice clean action shots that we've been having this whole movie.
Yeah, it's the very poetic good versus evil.
Yes.
They're fighting in the church.
Yes. You know, the worst place to fight.
Or the best place if you're good, because you've got the Lord on your side.
There is a lot of candlesticks you can use as weapons, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot wax hurts, and they're not the BDSM candles, so they don't have that low melt point.
That's true. These would legitimately hurt. There's plenty of heavy things to throw. Negative side, would the Lord frown on you fighting in the church?
If it was for the greater good.
See, that is hoping.
Sometimes, Lord, there are sacrifices we must make. I must kill this imposter in church for you.
In church, yeah. That's the key there.
But also, I do appreciate that their mannerisms and the way they speak has been changing over the course of their losing themselves, or like not losing themselves, but more so
morphing into themselves,
forgetting that they're supposed to be this other person.
Exactly.
It also doesn't hurt that he screws up the voice box a little bit,
which, won't lie, is a quick detail that if you for some reason decided to maybe take a handful of popcorn and drop some at that moment and had to look down to get it, you're going to miss it, and you're going to miss the cool little detail, because the only thing these two men have that is similar is their voices.
Yeah.
The rest of them, totally different people. They do sound kind of similar.
I can see it in a way. The other little film nod that I like in this movie, and they didn't state it in the commentary, and I'm surprised they didn't, but this is very much a Sergio Leone, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Stand up, like close up of the eyes, looking back and forth at each other.
It's not overly done for those who are worried, like my husband, but it is there. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's great. But also, God, the way they bring the daughter back into this.
Yeah, you kind of forget she was there for a second, don't you?
Yeah, there's a little bit of comedy of she can't tell the difference, even though now their voices are the same.
Yeah.
And then she shoots the wrong one.
I love that. That, to me, was peak action, like, are they the same person or not, sort of thing.
Well, it's also an interesting idea because, in a way, it kind of relates to what you're trained to do in a survival or your flight and fight response.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where there's a theory in Star Wars, the reason the stormtroopers are bad at firing and can't kill the main characters is because they're not wearing the uniforms of the rebels. So they haven't vilified them to the point where, okay, this group of people that look this way, they're our enemies. They're not humans. We can kill them. Whereas Luke, Leia, and Han Solo aren't dressed as rebels.
I do like that theory. However, I would blame the really inconvenient helmets and armor that they wear as being a major corporate reason to not be able to fire your gun correctly.
Fair, and also by that point, they're not the trained clones that we've seen in the first trilogy. They're a lot of hired people. But yeah, it's that thing of, okay, this person doesn't look like that. Not fully uncanny valley, but your thought process of, this person looks like dad, this person doesn't look like dad, shoot.
Oh, for sure. And on top of that, just replaying all of the stuff that have happened with her throughout the movie, as far as oh, is he a good dad? Oh, what, clearly she's having issues too. She's a teenage daughter having a hard time with life.
Yeah.
And it's playing off of all of that.
Yeah, it just made me think of oh, in 10 years from now, you'll be laughing. Remember that time you shot dad because he had someone else's face on?
Yeah. Honestly, probably.
Yeah. Well, it's great too because Troy takes advantage of it and grabs her and then starts licking her face. And it's just
so gross.
Oh, this isn't my dad. I screwed up.
If only there wasn't another shot in this barrel.
Oh, wait. I've got a knife.
Aha! Stab, stab.
Yeah, again, the little payoffs of the little scenes.
It did work.
Yeah, and honestly, the first time I watched this movie, this entire scene felt like it dragged out. Granted, I'm sure I was drinking that night, so there was a lot of
Well, and I do think there's a reason. again, this is by far the most cinematic action section of the movie.
Mhm.
Everything else is done tastefully, and like the action is shot in an interesting way, and it's pieced together in like in a manner that you like get to enjoy all of the action without feeling too rushed, but also it's not too slow. This one, I do think he intentionally slowed this down to really emphasize the over symbolism that's happening.
Well, and mine's the opposite. I think my thing with it is, or at least my initial thought with it. Now I love it. I don't think it's too slow.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it was just so much action after action after action because the whole speedboat chase.
The speedboat chase was a lot.
Which I love that it was written because Wu didn't think the church was a good enough climax, and I agree. It would have been a fine climax.
It would have been okay, but the speedboat is cool.
Yeah, it's not that church isn't the one-on-one between Troy and Archer.
Granted, are there maybe less cheesy ways to have a location for one-on-one between these two men? Yes. Is the speedboat cool, and was it done mostly with practical effects? Also, yes.
Yeah. Pull the third, or well, maybe they don't know the movie, but the Samurai Trilogy, the third one, the last battle with Musashi, and I can't remember his main antagonist. It's on the beach. You got the final fight at dawn on the beach or some shit. Like, do something like that. The Western shootout. It
is very Western shootout in its idea, and yet it's so focused on being an action movie with all these elements of like the symbolism between the duality between good and evil and the human condition. But it's so focused on being an action movie that, like, why would we bother adding that level back in?
But there is a level of smartness to it, too, because eventually when all the explosions happen, there's a big crash.
Yes, it is very cool.
Castor's cornered.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, like, really letting him monologue, he just shoots him with a spear gun.
I do like that.
Good.
I do like that.
Not taking his chances anymore. But I do think it's funny where Castor is just like in his last little freak out, starts cutting the face off. Like, you can't repair it. They just changed faces. You don't think they have the science to like cover up the scars that they just covered up to transplant your faces?
Okay, that was something that at first I did not understand. I thought he was gonna like try and rip his face off and throw it in the ocean so that he couldn't get it back.
Yeah.
Which that would have made more sense. And like, granted, this movie's just an R. It's an R in 1997, so like we can't get too gory here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where I was thinking he was going, was like, clearly this is like a very lightly put on skin because we've spent so much time talking about how we can't punch him in the face, might ruin that beautiful new face.
Yeah.
So I thought we were gonna like peel our skin off and throw it in the ocean, and be like, you'll never be yourself again.
Well,
but that's not what he says. He's like, I'll mar your face so that way when you come back, you never forget. But instead of going across the front, like put a big ol' X or something, or even like write like loser across his own face, he cuts around it, the part that no one's gonna care about.
He's just doing the outline of it,
and it's okay. And don't get me wrong, I don't think cutting your own face off is an easy task. I think that's probably very challenging. It's so light.
Yes.
He barely cuts his face. He's like, meh, meh. You'll never have your beautiful face back again. It's like, bro, we just did this. Clearly scars aren't a problem in this day and age.
No, exactly. It's kind of funny. I think that's why I appreciate it more, is it's got that level of cheese at the end. Because even though there's supposed to be this heartfelt moment, the FBI comes, they call him by his name, which I assume his wife told everyone of, like...
I would hope she did.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one thing that I want to ask you. The director, Wu, talks about how his final, like, decision, like, the big one for this movie was instead of him using a gun to kill him, he's gonna use the spear hook, right? Or the harpoon.
Gun.
Yeah, the spear gun. Because it's very symbolic, and it ties back in with the church scene we just had, in a way.
Because it makes a cross at the end of the arrow, maybe?
He had something to say about how, like, we speared Jesus and all that, and I was like, I did not get that. And I won't lie, I was a little disappointed that we didn't use the gun. We were so trigger happy that, honestly, it's not a normal gun either, just in case you were confused. It's like a decorated, personalized gun.
That would have been a great way to do it, is you're killed by your own weapon.
Used his own gun, I feel like.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there's a lot in this movie that could have been different. Not saying it should have. I love this movie. But I do think it would have been just a wee bit more poetic to, like, be killed with your own specialized weapon that you've spent so long pointing at other people.
Yeah. It would have been funny, but I'm glad they didn't go that route, because this one's fine enough. It's quick. It's not poetic. It's just quick. It's dirty. It's over.
And it does give us enough room for him to chop his own face off. Because like, if it had been a normal gun, it would have been like, oh, you finally caught bang.
Yeah,
and you've been dead.
Yeah. Well, and then we got a little bit of, the ending is supposed to be sentimental. He doesn't need the scar anymore. He doesn't want it back. But it got me.
I think I would have left it on forever. I would have been terrified that another random man is going to be me and be like coming into my life being a better dad to my daughter than me.
But I also wonder, like, did he ask to get, like, the love handles back, or is he just like, sweet, I'm fit again?
Okay, that is something I do want to know, because we've talked about how Cage occasionally gets really buff for a role, but his natural state of being is not buff. It's dad-ish bod.
Nowadays, if you look, old Cage was very much in shape.
He was, and this is very in shape Cage. Do you think they didn't address it because they're like, well, Cage is already ripped. We can't turn around. We've already done this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It got me thinking. I learned recently, you know, the movie Cabin in the Woods.
I know it well.
The reason the stoner doesn't jump in the water, or not Cabin in the Cabin in the Woods. I'm sorry, I keep flipping the name with Cabin Fever.
Yeah.
The reason the stoner doesn't jump in the water is because he was more fit than the guys who were supposed to be the jocks.
I do remember that interview, and I thought that, honestly, that would have been a little bit ironic, but it would have ruined the symbolism in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the direction here is, don't do it, because one's much more in shape than the other guy.
Yeah, one's definitely more in shape than the other guy. And also, like, if you were thinking to yourself, my wife would really love it if I came back ripped.
Yeah. Would
you not just be like, hey, bro, just for the wife. I've already fucked this up really bad. Do you think you could leave the six-pack intact?
Yeah, I mean...
Like, give me every edge to apologize to my wife, who definitely hates me now.
Yeah, and good... I don't... So here's the thing. So all this happens, and we get, like, the whole sentimentality. They are waiting for him to come home. You see the shadow through the curtains.
It's a very touching, like, reunite scene until the very last second.
They touch each other's face.
It's a little weird, but, you know, we've already established it as a thing.
And then, boom, here's Adam, our replacement son, who looks like our son, who's dead, who now would probably be in his preteens if he was still alive. Because remember...
That was 6 years ago.
Yeah, there's 6 years between the death and
maybe
now.
7 now at this point, honestly. Like, depending on what the timeline looks like. Like, it's been a minute.
6 years and a few months.
Yeah, like, this is not the same child. On top of that, and, like, the director and the writers talk, honestly, kind of in length about their decision to have the son be adopted into the family. And they felt very justified in him being part of the family and being, like, the last good act. And I get it when they talk about it. Like, when they are actively talking about how, like, oh, well, he's such a good person, he couldn't let some child just be left.
Well, he promises Sasha.
He promised to Sasha, like, he fulfills his promises. And, like, when they are explaining all that, it makes sense. However, as an audience member, I have totally forgotten about Sasha.
He promised Sasha this as disguised as Troy.
Yes! Okay, that's the thing. Okay.
But at his core, he's still Archer.
Okay, again, when they are talking about it in the commentary, I'm on board with them 100%. However, as a normal person watching this movie the first time without commentary, I went, why the fuck is this child here?
See, I'm on the other side. I was like the test audiences. They did it both ways because the studio was also like, get rid of this kid.
I think I'm on the studio side for the only time I think in my life.
But like it is a nice way to wrap it up. The family's complete with adopted Adam, that at some point they have to explain this kid's origin of like, yes, you're adopted,
and also your father was the most evil man in the United States.
/ killed our kid that you're that
you replaced. Yeah, okay, this is not a healthy placement for this child.
It's not.
This is terrible.
Well, on top of that, to like indoctrinate him, the now sister runs her hand down
across his face. Yeah,
it's like
a weird Simba thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's such a weird element of the movie that makes no goddamn sense. But I think having the kid, it works.
I don't hate it. I will just say that as someone who was thinking way too much about this movie before listening to the commentary, I was confused for this child, because I was like, as that child, I would be like, who the hell are these people? Why are there pictures of me that are not me
Yeah.
in this house, and why are we touching faces like this? This is not how normal people interact.
Because the kid's probably about like 6, 7-ish, so they're well aware that something's happening.
He's cognitive enough to know that this is weird.
Yeah.
And also, like, he's also cognitive enough to know that, like, my once papa, depending on how Sasha talked to him about this, like, he either knows too much or not enough.
Knows nothing.
Okay.
I
that's
guarantee
maybe
you.
worse, because now he's going to live his whole life a lie, and at some point someone's going to go, hey, did you know that how was it like growing up with a dad who's a super serial killer, and then your dad faced off with him, and, like, there's going to be a documentary about this in their world.
Yeah. Archer has to retire from the FBI at this point because
they have to move. They cannot live here anymore.
Yeah, well, think about it too. Also, how does he live up to the standards of defusing a bomb 2 seconds before it went off?
At this point, does the FBI give him an embossed pen as, like, a thank you? Like, have we stepped up from wine and edible eats to, like, a little plaque to go on your desk?
Well, remember, the CIA gave him the
Sorry,
bottle.
CIA. Do you think at this point the president himself sends you a little pen and a sticker, being like, good job? No,
what you do is now you run for government.
You know what? That could be the sequel that may or may not happen.
Yeah, you're the local hero at that. Not the local hero. You're a national hero at this point.
But again, will they let this super duper secret slip? Because like, now we have to explain to everyone else who has terrible face deformities why they are not getting this super secret surgery.
You go one of two routes. You either go government, like politics and whatnot, or you become a movie star.
Which would make the most sense. Yeah, honestly, no matter what happens, everyone in this family is fucked. No one's gonna live a normal life. Everyone's going to be sad in about a month. Therapy's
gonna be real interesting.
They're gonna spend so much money on, like, trying to feel better as a group.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna go well.
I actually don't think Adam has a single line in this whole movie.
No, he doesn't.
Or other than, like, maybe, like, one-off line that doesn't add anything.
He doesn't say anything. He is just a fill-in statue for Dead's son, who also had no lines.
Yeah. You could have used the same kid in both roles.
They might have used the same kid in both roles, and I would not have noticed.
Yeah, so that's Face Off.
Yeah, honestly, I love this movie. I know I gripe about it a lot, but this is so much fun.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought it was a okay movie the first time I watched it. Granted,
I think okay is how most people came away with this the first time they saw it.
Yeah, it is definitely better multiple watches down the line.
100%.
And I completely understand why our friend Phil keeps trying to have us watch this for Lads Night again.
I agree.
It's this and The Rock are like the two he always picks.
Well, those are both solid choices. I will say that from a Cage film, this is an acceptable level of caginess. If you are, like, looking for a good, like, midway Cage, like, essence, you do get some fun faces, but you have Travolta, who's, like, honestly really pulling a lot of weight here.
Yes.
A lot of the really great, like, acting and action comes from Travolta, which balances out Cage, I think.
But here's the thing is, I'd say there's a lot of good acting that comes from Cage, because Cage is the main guy in this. He's having to pretend to be this crazy psychopath from someone who's supposed to be relatively level-headed.
Yes. And I think it's the two of them trying to both in some way match each other's energies, that it, like, really, like, enhances Travolta's action and, like, his drama, because he has such a great, like, intensity to his roles. Yeah. And Cage does a really good job of, like, bringing in that little unhinged Cage that we all know and love, but it's toned in such a way that it fits the rest of the movie.
It's a good, on the Cage scale, it is a good, just middle of the road.
Yes.
It's memeable, or you recognize a couple of them.
Definitely.
But it doesn't go, like, full Vampire's Kiss with everything.
No, he's not the one making everyone else feel uncomfortable because he's pulling Cage-esque stunts. He's making you uncomfortable because he's a serial killer, and it fits. It all ties together. This world, while ridiculous and overly action-packed, everything ties well together. I love that little details come back to play. I do think it's well written, despite having some pretty big, like, I see why we just didn't address that.
Yeah.
But I think overall, for an action sci-fi fantasy thing, based off of some guy's snowboarding accident, I think it worked really well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun. You don't have to think too much about it, but when you do, it's fun because there's so much bullshit associated with it.
There's so much bullshit. And I will not lie. I have known this movie for a long time. I watched it without the commentary the first time to refresh myself, to really enjoy it again. This movie is 100% better with the commentary. Mm-hmm. Knowing the director's, like, thoughts behind things, knowing where the writers were pulling inspirations, and, like, these background side characters are based off of real people in their lives. Why they chose to set things the way they did is because one of them thought this was a romantic date for his wife, and so that's what they did in the movie.
Yeah.
All of those little fun tidbits make this movie 100 times better.
Yeah. So then on a good, bad, weird scale, what do you give it, Chris?
This is a good bad for me. I don't think it hits any weird points despite it being a very Cage-forward film. Mm-hmm. I think it balances out to, like, dodge the weird. It's bad in so many ways that it loops back around to good.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat where it's a good movie, but it definitely has some bad moments the more you start thinking about it.
You cannot think about this movie.
But that's what also makes it good. Is because it's got those bad moments.
Yes.
That you're starting to think of, like, the fun little tidbits. And
the more you dig, there are answers, and that's where it goes from being just bad to back around to being good again, you know? Because if they had just been like, oh, yeah, we didn't really consider why he escapes this way. And no, they fully address it. They're like, he escapes this way because we couldn't think of a better way.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's chef's kiss bad.
Yeah, I agree. So then on, would you recommend this movie?
I would. Granted, this isn't for everyone. It's an action film, and it's a fairly heavy into the, like, uncomfortable territories at times. So maybe not for everyone, especially if you're not an action fan. But if you are even remotely into it, this movie's so much fun. Mm-hmm. This movie's great. I highly recommend watching it and then watching, like, reading up on, like, the commentary. Because, again, knowing that these people know people that they pulled inspiration for this shit show of a movie, and they're, like, just casually being like, yeah, my best friend Joe once did this, and so I put it in the film because I thought that was fun. Yep. That makes this movie even better.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And if you don't know Cage, this is one I would recommend as like a starter. And if you do know Cage, it's still a good watch to go back to see his classic. Granted, I do like more of the more modern stuff he's doing, but
same. Like, this isn't my favorite Cage by far.
No, but it is definitely a good one to go see and go back and rewatch. I highly recommend this movie all over.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So, but it's that time of the show. Season 6 bingo. New season and a new game. Mm-hmm. Or midway through the season and new game. Chris and I are playing bingo, and you can too. Rules are simple. 1 stamp per card per episode. Cards can be found on social at tgtbtw _podcast at Instagram and Threads, and tgtbtw podcast on Twitter. You are free to email the request at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. You can use any of the 3 bingo card variations, but each stamp must be associated with a season, micro-review, or spotlight episode of Season 6. First place is already taken, but we still have 3 other spots available. Second place gets to choose a deep dive and 1 micro-review. Third place gets to choose 2 micro-reviews. And 4th and 5th place get to choose a micro-review. So feel free to share at us on social media or email us to participate. Rules are slightly different for Chris and myself. We only get a total of 2 stamps per deep dive. First to get a bingo in any of the good, bad, and weird cards gets to choose a movie in that category for Season 7. Good is already taken up. I won that last episode.
Congratulations.
So now, Chris, what do you choose for your good or weird cards? And we have, by the way, we have ruled out continuing the cards because we'll just plan around it.
We will just plan around it. My first one shall be on my bad card, in which Nico gives a movie a bad rating. Which means, the next time that you complain about the Wilhelm scream, I will have succeeded, and I know that you cannot contain a Wilhelm scream complaint.
I can't. And I've pre-watched like our next 4 movies, so you're going to be waiting a while on that one.
That's okay. I'm set for there. And though he was not too cagey for the whole movie, I would argue that the creepy face in the fight scene hits my weird card for Cage was a bit too cagey.
I'll give it to you, plus all the jizzing from grabbing asses.
And the grabbing the asses. Granted, this was not a too cagey movie. He just had a few scenes that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm going to give you a fighting chance on the bad card.
Woohoo!
Because I could have gone with Chris gives a bad movie rating, which would give me a Marvel rant or Disney rant.
Oh, that will happen.
That one's easy.
That one's definitely on the book.
So I'm going to go with yet another tragic backstory.
There's several tragic backstories here.
There are.
Everyone, in fact.
And that's on my bad card. On my weird card, I'm going to put a little pressure on you.
Oh, no.
And even though he's not that old man, weird old man being weird.
I will give it to you because I think it fits that box perfectly.
So just you wait. The next time I come up with an absurd theory for something that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Weird. Putting that pressure on you, Chris.
Well, I think you might have that definitely in the pipeline, so I will be having to be careful.
So yeah, that's our last deep dive episode for Nic Cage November, and though it may be coming to an end, it's not over just yet. You are trapped with us for one more microview. Some might call it torture, some might call it paradise.
Sure. And then afterwards, the second happiest time of the year.
Christmas, but we're pushing back for one episode on that. So.
Well, holiday cheer.
I mean, I think the movie came out around the holidays. There is a Christmas album associated with the movie.
Yes, there is.
So, but anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or tgtbtw for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.